I have always wanted to make the people that worked for me stronger. I never had that worry that if I teach them how to do my job, that they're going to take my job. I never thought that. I always thought if I teach them to do my job, I have more free time to do the things that get me prepared for the next job.
Welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. Warriors at Work is a place where everyone in the workplace can come together, gain insight, encouragement, tell stories, connect, and share wisdom. We are a place of like-minded people at different stages of life, all coming together with a shared interest of enlightening and inspiring one another. If you're interested in going from the predictable to the potent, and you want to find your warrior magic, step into the journey with us. Welcome to Warriors at Work. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host here at the Warriors at Work podcast. Thank you so much for being here. So today, I am talking to Michael Sherlock. She's a keynote speaker, a trainer, an author, a podcast host, and the chief potential officer of her own business called Shock Your Potential. Yes, the word shock is in there. She's also an uber entrepreneur who had an incredible 12 months. She created a whole new venture called KukuaBiz, where she works with incredible talent in Kenya and partners them with businesses around the world that need support. We are talking about all of those incredible things that Michael has brought to the world, but we're also talking about her personal journey through the last 12 months, but also her entrepreneurial journey full stop. From where she started to where she is now and what she is looking to bring to the world. Enjoy. Hey everybody, it's Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host here at the Warriors at Work podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, I have a very interesting, dynamic guest with me, Michael Sherlock, and we're going to be talking about her business, her story, her livelihood as an entrepreneur, but also we're going to talk about who she is in the world. So Michael, thank you so much for being in this conversation with me today.
Thank you so much. And I just love the title Warriors at Work because especially for women, we need to feel fierce and warriors no matter what we're doing and remind ourselves that we have all that power no matter what.
That is in fact the theme of all month. Is fierce females, and you are one of them. Just the fact that you have the word shock in your business title, which I'm going to get into right about now. So when I was doing a lot of research about you, you call yourself a speaker, a trainer, an author, a podcast host, a chief potential officer, which I totally dig, by the way, and a founder of a new venture, KukuaBiz, which we're going to get into in a little bit. Which of those titles really lights you up?
When I tell people I'm the chief potential officer, they're like, yeah, what does that mean? And I just have fun with it because I think, before being an entrepreneur, so many times when people would say, oh, what do you do? And we'd say, oh, I was the VP of sales. Oh, I'm the marketing director. Oh, I'm the this. And we have so much kind of emotional and mental baggage that gets caught up in what that title is.
So true.
And when I decided to name my company Shock Your Potential, I could say I'm a CEO or whatever, just because, I own the company. But it's really about bringing out people's potential. So the chief potential officer means I see it in you. I've got to see it in me. And I think it's probably the one that I have most fun with, just because besides everything else, it's a little shocking about me. And make people stop and go, wait, what? What does that mean?
Yeah. So you deliberately and thoughtfully chose the word shock. Mm-hmm. Why?
I believe that we all know we have potential and we all want to live up to the potential. But sometimes we hold ourselves back, especially women, from going after that potential. So I talk about shocking is that, I'm shocking. My hair is a little shocking. I'm a little, fun and crazy, a little unorthodox in times. But the other shock is where you just need that extra little jolt, that, that burst of energy that gives you momentum that says, okay, move forward. And so my job, I believe, is to give people that spark that makes them say, okay, you know what? if I just sit around here continuing to say what I want to do or want to achieve, I'm not ever going to achieve anything near what I possibly can. But if I go after it, then not only can I achieve that, but there's probably a whole lot more after that I hadn't even considered because I'm still sitting here playing it safe.
Did you always have that fire?
Yeah, I did. And it doesn't mean that it isn't without, my own kind of emotional baggage with it, meaning, I have not always believed that I could achieve those things at that high level. I mean, I always did. I wanted to, but, our own fears and anxieties and our mental baggage, can still hold us all back. But I've always believed that my job is to make a fool out of myself. I'm the one that's happy to, get up on stage and sing and dance, even if you don't like what I sound like. If that, eases tension in the room, or I'll draw attention to myself if somebody else is having a hard time to get them through it. I've never minded that part. And it's shocking to other people sometimes. But for me, it's that sense of just saying, okay, no matter what, in this moment, if there's a crisis, I can handle it. And if there's other times I need to sit in the corner and suck my thumb and curl up in a ball, I'll do that too. But in the moments that I need to be on, then I'm going to be in it all the way.
I love that. Be in it all the way. All right. So talk to us about the hair. So anybody that is just listening to this, you're driving in the car. We talked about this before we hit the go live button. There are 6 colors right now that I'm looking at. It is absolutely gorgeous. Why the hair color? Because there's a story behind that, which is right on brand. It's right on point to what you just said. So tell us the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny because just last night, my husband got some sort of text, a picture reminder from 7 years ago. And he goes, "Oh, in this picture, you were still blonde."
Oh boy.
And I went, "Oh boy, that woman's gone." But it'll be 7 years this coming October when I was going through a really tough spot in my job. And I was doubting myself, and I was so overwhelmed, and I wasn't sleeping, and I was just stressed beyond belief. And I remember I went to get my hair done, and my stylist said, "All right, what color are we doing today?" Which really meant, what color of blonde are we doing? Are we doing dark blonde or a reddish blonde? Are we doing a brown blonde? And I said, "I think we should just get some navy blue and put them right in the bangs." And I said it more just like out of frustration and just like out of this point of, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. And she looked at me and she goes, "Are you serious? Because we could do that." And I remember looking at her, and I just paused for a minute, and I said, "Let's do it. Let's do it. I have nothing else to lose right now in my job. I have everything to gain in terms of feeling like I can control something. And so I controlled the color of my freaking hair." And from that point, I never have gone back. I've gotten wilder, more bold, but I've done all kinds of colors, everything imaginable. And it is so empowering. And I'll tell you what, a couple things. Number one, some people look at me and they're like, "What's going on?" I could never do that because I'm in a professional environment. You can't do that. I'm like, well, I was a VP of sales for a very large company where, making sure we brought in $100 million a year. You can have crazy hair. But the second thing that I love about it is that every day that I am outside in this world, I have at least one person that compliments me on my hair. "I love your hair." They're always saying as I'm walking by, "I love your hair. Oh, I love your hair." Yesterday, I got six compliments. And that is really good for your ego.
Oh, yeah.
On the days when everything else is kind of like, oh, it's not perfect, that just little boost of something that's fun for me reminds me to not take myself too seriously and remember that this is a part of how I'm expressing who I am today. And I love it.
And I also love, it's a bit of a metaphor too, because there's a lot of dimensions to the style, to the color. There's a lot of things that would come from that. And I would imagine that when you're talking to businesses and they're considering bringing you in, what I love is like, this is who I am. This is what you're getting. You are very clear about that and how you show up in the world. And that's actually the next place that I wanted to go, because you have a lot of experience in corporate America as an and as an entrepreneur. And when you think about who you are as a business professional in the world, what is the stuff that really lights you up? How, like when you are at your best and you're just killing it, what is happening?
I'll tell you what, the thing I love most would make most people really uncomfortable. I love being in front of a room. Let's say there's 500 people. And my greatest example of this was sitting in a room with about 500 people in Ireland. And I'm at a sales manager meeting. I'm training them on a new process where, we're talking about, how to ask for referrals. And it was a really specific example. And I looked out in the audience, and one guy in the front just had his arms crossed, and he's looking at me, and I said, okay, we're going to all just stop for a second. And I said, what's your name? I can't remember what his name is. Let's call him Tom. And he's like, Tom. I said, Tom, I can tell you don't believe a word I'm saying. And I just called him out on it. He goes, well, you're right, I don't. And I said, so tell me what you don't believe. He said, well, what you're trying to propose will never work in Ireland. You don't understand. People don't like being in their business, blah, 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 blah. And I said, Tom, let me role play with you. And he's like, I don't like to role play. I said, no. I want you to be the tough customer. Let me have it all. I'm going to show you how I use this system, and everything you give me the worst you can bring. And I said, don't hold anything back. Don't, be overly dramatic, whatever. And it was amazing because he's like, okay. So he gets the microphone and he's like, I'm not going to give you that information. And I'm saying, oh, well, I completely understand. I go through my whole spiel. And every time he's trying to come back with me at something else, until finally at the end, he starts laughing and he goes, okay, I guess this can work. He goes, but you had to prove it to me. And I love those moments where people say, you'll never understand, or you couldn't help me with this problem, or I have no idea what else to do. And we dive into something that is so unique to them, but that other people are usually thinking. And handling those right in the moment and not being afraid to walk away from them. And what the greatest thing was, afterward, he came up and he goes, I can't believe you called me out on that. I said, I couldn't help it. You're standing there with your arms crossed. You're telling me in every part of your body you don't believe me. He goes, well, what if you couldn't convince me? Then I would say, all right, well, I can't convince him. Who's next?
What a great story. Well, but in that moment, you made a choice. You really made a very, very conscious choice, but I have to believe that not only did you know you had experience and skill, you had an internal steadiness to you.
Oh, yeah.
And so where does that come from?
I don't know. I mean, probably from my childhood in some sense. My parents, I was adopted. I'm the only one that was adopted of all my siblings. And somewhere along the way, they always said, oh, you can do anything. You can be anything. So I had all this confidence, and probably some of the confidence was unwarranted. I wasn't the best, at playing the piano. I wasn't the best at playing the violin or anything, but my parents were like, you're wonderful. You're amazing. But what I think it did for me is it just taught me that it didn't matter. I mean, I was still loved no matter what. And if they told me I could do anything and I was great at everything, I knew in the back of my head I wasn't going to be a virtuoso of any kind. I knew I loved to sing, but I was never going to be, a famous singer. I was good enough to have people enjoy what I did. And I think that kind of moved into my business acumen, this kind of drive to go after the things that are tough and not worry about them, because it's really easy for people, for instance, to be up on a stage and see that people don't believe them. And so either they're distracted by that and nervous by it and try and avoid it, or it'll fluster them and they don't know where to go. And I'm like, if he's thinking about, there's other people in this room thinking about it. So if I don't address this right now, I'm not going to have buy-in, and I need buy-in. And with that, whatever I've done in my work or my business, I need buy-in. And so if anybody questions it, I want to go right after it. And if at the end they don't believe me, I go, fair enough. I gave it my best shot. Where do we go from here?
Which makes so much sense that you are in the business of really making sales professionals find their power. That makes so much sense to me. And it also makes so much sense for where a lot of your entrepreneurial spirit comes from, is you see the world through the lens of possibility.
Oh, yeah.
Not through the lens of scarcity and what's not going to be available to me. I mean, this is so interesting, which, of course, we have to talk about this new and unusual business that you have. And I'm pronouncing it correctly, like Kukua?
KukuaBiz. Yes. Kukua.
So KukuaBiz. Tell everybody about this business.
Yeah, I am so passionate about it. And it's so interesting because right now I'm actually preparing for another big interview, and I'm, talking about this program specifically. And I've been really getting deep into why this business is so incredible to me. But the backstory I'll tell very quickly. I knew a couple years ago I needed to have help in my company. So I was a solopreneur. It was time to grow and scale, but I could not afford someone in the US market. I just couldn't, because, there goes all of the profits. At some point in time, you've got to take home a little bit for you. But I was working with a client based in Singapore who had offices in Thailand and in Kenya and in Kathmandu, wherever Kathmandu is. So I got to know, especially the head of the Kenyan team. And I just loved her, and I got to work with her on a lot of projects. And when I actually went to Singapore and Bangkok to spend time with that client, she came over. And so we became very close friends. And I said to her, I knew that the affordability of having somebody from Kenya was, very affordable for us. And I knew her. And I said, how do I find somebody? And she said, come, I'll work for you. And I said, I can't steal you from my client. That would be wrong. But by the way, she does work for me now. I don't work with that client anymore, so it's all good. But she got me connected with some other people. And so then all of a sudden I had 2 people that I hired. And then a few months later, another one. And then another one. And now I have 7 people on my team that are all from Kenya. And at some point in time last year, I had 3 people in one day say, Michael, how do I get someone from Kenya like you have? And I said, you know what? I mean, I've interviewed 100 of these people, and I'd like to hire them all, and I can't yet. So maybe there's an opportunity. So we started then matching Kenyan professionals with what we thought would just be U.S. small businesses, but we actually have a couple in other parts of the world right now. And so my greater mission is not only to, provide this conduit so that people can have access to great talent that's very affordable, but also to really take these people in Kenya who are amazing. Most of them have multiple degrees, but they have no opportunity to work. Okay. And so you have this affordability. My job is to make them the best remote global workforce on this planet, and harness all that opportunity, because they want to work. They're incredible people. They're so loving and caring. But they don't all have all the skills they need yet. A lot of them don't have the experience yet. And if we can provide it by not only matching with them with people, but we are building this whole level of training for them, we're going to create something that is more sustainable than I would have ever thought. And this time last year, I was so excited by how my speaking calendar was booked for me and what I wanted to do and accomplish. And after the pandemic stopped all that, all of a sudden I'm like, if I never go out and speak and train again, but I can do this is a marker. This is a legacy. And I never would have thought about it until you start listening to the things that people are asking you and realizing you may not be happy your business is pivoting, but if you're paying attention, you will find what you're really meant to do next.
It's like the universe was whispering to you that what a powerful way to package up everything you know,
yes,
and provide that in such a generous, loving, but also reciprocal way for such a beautiful end game. Like it's like the perfect connection, because you were a road warrior just like me. You spent a lot of times on planes, trains, automobiles, and I know your life shifted dramatically as a result of that change. What about you personally? How have you evolved, shifted, changed over the course of the last year?
Well, I think, first of all, I had to come to grips with the fact that it might be a long time, if ever, that I was going to get up and be on a stage in front of 1,000 people again. The virtual experience is just not the same, as being right there with people. And nor is it, frankly, to be completely, transparent, the speaking industry has been so hard hit because businesses and organizations think that if you don't travel, they don't need to pay you. You don't have to fly here, but my experience is what you want and what you're looking for. But there's a gap right now. And for a long time, I was feeling really bad because I loved what I was doing, and I still will, and I still have opportunities, but it's a tenth or a fifth of what it was this time last year. I was on a huge trajectory. And so I had to like let that go. I'd grieve it and say, okay, so then what can you do? How do you take your experience? And that's when we decided to create the Shock Your Potential app. So I had known I'd wanted to do that for a long time. So now we're developing all this training that is going right into people's hands. We're developing all these affiliate relationships that are incredibly powerful, that are building my business in a way I never had thought about before. So I still mourn the times getting up on the stage because I love that. That's, I'm so exhausted when I'm done with an hour or 6 hours, but I'm high. It's like, it's a complete high. And
it's
I love
pure
it.
adrenaline. It's pure adrenaline where you're almost like you're vibrating. You're so jacked because you have to like, you're holding a whole room in your hands.
Yeah.
It's so,
So I had to let that go. But once I did, and then I really, saw where to take my focus and that I'm still important. It just is going to come out in different ways. Then it's a different kind of feeling today.
Well, one of the things that we talk about a lot in the Warriors at Work community is this idea of being in service to one another, or that we're all here to create thinkers and doers to help us activate and elevate the greatest part of ourselves. But the other piece of it is also thinking about who are those people you surround yourself with that are keeping you accountable, that are keeping you focused on your own commitment for evolution and growth. So who are those people in your life?
Yeah, I call mine my truth speakers, and I've got 3 of them that have been with me for various levels of my life, but all 3 of them still are in my life. And these are women that I can call and say, I'm having a breakdown. I can call and say, I need somebody to help me with some inspiration on something because I'm stuck. I've got a mental block on something. I can call them and say, hey, I want to bounce this new idea off of, because I think it'd be a great way to, collaborate with you or with other people. But they're the women, and specifically women for me, that, I have some men that are kind of like this, but not to the same level. But this truth speaker is that they will also look me in the eye and say, you need to really rethink what you're doing, or you need to just put your big girl panties on and, suck it up, girlfriend, because I know you're feeling bad, but you know that staying in that mode doesn't help you. So you help me to remind you to kick you in the butt. And those are people that, I had this moment about 7 months ago when all of a sudden the caliber of guests on my podcast were going way up. And this is a great thing to happen. All of a sudden I'm being fed from like 12 different podcast booking agencies that we cannot book all the people in my 5-day-a-week show that are being sent our way. So we have incredibly talented people, and they were all achieving millions and millions of dollars in success. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not there. And I literally had another, fetal position, thumb sucking, feel sorry for myself day. Yeah. And I started sending voice messages to one of my truth speakers. And it started out with her saying, I understand. And I felt this way, and then as the day progressed, she's like, okay, now girlfriend, you're tough. You're a warrior. You can handle this, until she's like, okay, you've had enough now. Stop it. Go get something done. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get some ice cream.
I love that. I love that.
It's the people that will tell you the truth, but they love you at every step of the way. And they love you when they know you need to be held. And they love you when you need to hold a hand because you're afraid. And they love you enough to kick you in the pants when it needs to be done.
And they want your light to shine in the world. They're not trying to outshine. They're not trying to dim your light for their advantage. It's someone who's really holding you to the standard you've always wanted for yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Which leads me to my next question, because I'm curious, just zoom out for a moment. Mm-hmm. When you think of Shock Your Potential, you have all these amazing things happening. What are you working towards? It's like, you're going to have a day where you're going to turn around and be like, I am the entrepreneur that I always imagined. Like, tell me what that moment is going to be like for you.
I hope it's within the next 12 months, because this is something I want to bring to fruition. But I will be in Kenya, and I will have my team, and I will have all these people that we have placed with all these clients all over the globe. And I will have them in a room, and I will look at them, hug them all. And I will say, now we're really going to get started, kind of like the next chapter of bringing together all these people. And that's the next level I'm looking for, is that moment to be face to face with these people that I've pivoted so much for, because they're so worth it. And it's so exciting. And to know that, that they're excited about being part of something different. That's going to be the day. That's going to be better than any thousand person stage.
So I just got chills when you said that, by the way, down my right side. Do you get a lot of pushback from U.S. agencies that, hey, why aren't you hiring more, or anybody?
Mm-hmm. I've had a couple. I've had a couple, not too many, but I've had a couple, and it was really interesting because one gal got really angry with me, and she's like, and I live in Philadelphia, and she's like, why aren't you going down to offer this to people in South Philly? They need to work too. And I said, because they're not going to work for what a Kenyan I'm paying them that's a middle class salary. So people in South Philly are making more on unemployment, and I can't build my business without this. So if it's a choice between me building and growing my business to help others, and I help others that are also human beings in another part of the world who also have horrible unemployment, but worse than we do, then I'm going to do it. And her thought processes weren't, I wasn't offended by it, and I didn't feel like I needed to defend, but it was interesting. And I've had somebody else say, well, I'm just not quite sure. And people, I'm not quite sure if you're comfortable with it. I'm like, fine, no problem. But when you really get down to it, I've been kind of working on this exercise, like who's the ideal client for KukuaBiz? And not that it has to be a man or a woman, but when you start to write your avatar, you're kind of describing them. And it's really a version of me. It's someone that has several years into their business. They know they need to build and scale, or because they've hit a limit. There's only so much more bandwidth that they have. They need to have people help them to get to the next level, but they can't hire somebody at a US price. And if they do, that would either give away all their profits or might even put them more in the hole. And that's the person that's ideal, because if we find the right match for them, their business will grow and escalate. And at the same time, they will be providing, an opportunity for someone else who needs it just as badly. But otherwise, we're going to continue to see, especially after a pandemic, all these entrepreneurs that had fledgling businesses or that were just making it, that need to scale up, that can't hold on because they've lost so many clients. They're going to go backwards or fail. And to me, that's what I say when somebody pushes back. I'm like, I feel really good about this. And I can guarantee you that the people that we have on our team, they feel really good about it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. I love how you deliver that message with so much fervor and passion. It's like, I can feel it. I am also curious, who, or I should say, where do you get your inspiration, your motivation? I almost feel like you have the calling to do something in this space. Like there's something very intuitive about it. So I was kind of curious, where does all that come from?
So I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I backed in and out of, corporate America a lot. So my first company I started was when I was, I think, like 28, and I was doing something similar. So I was creating all these seminars. And the very first seminar that I created was called A Way with Words. And it was a one-day workshop to make people feel more comfortable giving public presentations, especially with their jobs. And I'll never forget, because I had 30 people sign up. I barely made any money because I had it at a beautiful place and, bought lunch, and, you don't understand how much I probably pocketed like $200 at the end of the day, but I was like thrilled. But what was funny is the day my who's one of my truth speakers, and we went into this business together, the day before, we were going to put all the brochures, because we actually did tri-folded brochures, and put labels on them.
Oh my God, I remember those.
Oh God. And we were just going to drop them in the mailbox, and we were having lunch at this little Chinese restaurant across the street from where we worked our day job. And in my fortune cookie, it said, "You have a way with words." And I went, that's crazy, because that's the name of the seminar that we're dropping the brochures up. And it was like, it did feel like a calling. And I've always loved training and motivating people. And so every job I've had has also been me training and speaking and leading and motivating. And whether it was teaching people how to sell hearing aids, or my first job, or, kind of at post graduation, college graduation, was working for a nonprofit in financial, kind of financial literacy. So no matter what, I've had to get people behind ideas that they might not be always comfortable with, but they knew they needed or wanted. And so it does feel like a calling to me. And so now it's like you said, once all of a sudden I realized, okay, Michael, if you don't get that next gig with, Nike or John Hancock or whatever to get that next speaking and training gig, you still have all this incredible stuff that you've created, you've trained, you've built, that there's a whole other portion of the world of people that need this training that will make them able to operate on a global scale and be competitive. So you didn't lose because you're not on a giant stage. You've won because now you can actually see that it's more than 1,000 people in a room and how many are really listening and how many are really going to do something. These are, amazing people who are eager to be a part of something even greater than they've been before.
So when you think about your warrior journey, so let's talk about Michael personally. You've talked a lot about what you're creating in terms of your business skill, your entrepreneurial spirit, and how this is now going to be in service to a much larger population. But what about you personally? What are you working towards in your own development, and what are you struggling with?
Oh, well, I struggled with a lot. And especially this last year, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of anxiety, a lot of sense of, gosh, I finally built something to where, we were, when you start to see the point in your business where you move from self-funding it to, it funds itself to now profit, you see those evolutions and to see the trajectory and lose it all in one day, or, over the course of a week. It really made me say, gosh, what have I built this for? What if none of these things come back? What am I going to do? Who am I without this? And that has been a real big, I remember saying to my husband, oh my God, am I going to have to go back and get a job in corporate America again? Because I don't know if I even can, how many people are looking for so few jobs, and having to keep myself calm through that has been really probably the biggest challenge. So I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of moments where I'm talking to myself out loud, and I just kind of try and keep going, like just one step at a time. And some days are great. Like today has been a fantastic day. It's really been productive. I've gotten so much done. But last week, Friday, I was, barely having enough juice to make it to the end of the day. And so every day there's just not all these positives. There's so many times, so many hours in the day where I just have to say, okay, Sherlock. And I know I'm telling myself something. I'm like, Sherlock, get up, walk away for a minute. Just go walk around the block, walk through the kitchen, go make a cup of coffee, go stand and look outside, go pet the cat. Just get out of wherever your head is right now, because your head is going down. And that journey is a hard one for me. I've struggled with depression my whole life. I have it under control now. But when those moments of anxiety come up, I fear for that. So it's this like battle, this demons in my head between, okay, you're on, everything's great in the world. You shut it down. You're like, oh God.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing that, because I think a lot of people listening and watching don't necessarily give themselves permission to talk about the realness. And I think one of the things we've learned from the last year is like there's no hiding from yourself, because everywhere you go, there you are, right? I think I heard that in a yoga class once. So everywhere you go, there you are. And personal life and professional life, we've integrated. There really is no difference. And a really fun day is you get to go to the kitchen, make a cup of tea at 2:00 and fight the inclination to grab the bottle of wine, depending upon the kind of day you're having.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate you being that honest and vulnerable, and just it means a lot to me. So the last question I'm going to leave with you, Michael, is when you think about your warrior magic, because you really epitomize so many of the attributes that I talk about here. And, my mission is to create this movement in the workplace of men and women that are moving from this sense of predictability and knowns to being more potent. What's your warrior magic, and how do you know it's your magic?
I would have to describe it as my fierce commitment to make myself and other people better. And let me explain that. I have always wanted to make the people that worked for me stronger. I never had that worry that if I teach them how to do my job, that they're going to take my job. I never thought that. I always thought if I teach them to do my job, I have more free time to do the things that get me prepared for the next job. And I've always loved that, but I'm very straight shooter with people. So when I have somebody who is, and a great case in point, and she would laugh, she would know that I was going to tell the story, but the woman who's now my podcast manager, who started out as my admin, we had about 6 months there where I was like, Josie, we've got to move you to the next level. We're missing components of where you need to be in your progress. And I knew she was struggling. I knew she had a lot of self-doubt. I knew she hadn't ever worked at the level that I was asking her to work. And so we did some sessions together. We actually have them in the Shock Your Potential app, under the coaching corner, where I've taped them and she knows that we're having people watch them. But, the point where I'm like, Josie, here's the bottom line. I don't spend time with people that aren't worth my time. So if I'm telling you we need to get you from here to there, I'm going to do it with you, whether you're dragging or screaming or I'm kicking you, and we laugh about it. But the point is that when I see potential in somebody else and I know I can make them better, I have different ways that I interact with them, but always with the intention of saying, you can do this and you're going to get there, but you have to take the steps. I can't really drag you along. You have to take the steps, but I will be here. And if you falter or you stumble, I will be there, but you have to move forward. And with my team, I have asked so much of them over the last year. I mean, just enormous amounts of things. And it's amazing to me to see them flourish. And so 2 of them now I've promoted. And, so my marketing manager is now my director of marketing, and she has supervisory power over several of the team. And Josie, I'm putting her in charge of something completely different that's going to require her to have more management over what we're doing with podcast managers for our other clients. And to see them people elevate to that point, that to me is when I go, all right, I've done it. This is exactly what I am put here on earth to do. Get people excited about what they can do, see their potential, kick them when they need to, in a good way, like a loving way. But to remind them with that truth speaker intensity, you can do this, but you need to do this. Let's get going. Don't waste any more time. You'll look back and go, wow, look at how far I've come. And that's the thing. I can't even imagine how she was as an admin, where I was almost like, I'm going to fire you, Josie. We got to fix this, to where she is now, where she's like, okay, what do we need to do next?
Wow. Talk about having a calling. Like there it is. You just gave a brilliant example that you are so doing your life's work. And you're an incredible entrepreneur, an incredible person. And I'm so excited to see what unfolds for you in 2021, Michael. Like, I have a feeling we're going to be talking at the end of the year and you're going to be like, you're not going to believe what happened. It's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom with me here today.
Thank you. And I love it. I'm very glad I've been a part of it.
Thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of Warriors at Work and letting us be a part of your warrior journey. You can ask questions and make suggestions for future topics at jc@jeanniecoomber.com. Connect with me personally on LinkedIn and Instagram, and join us on the Warrior Conversations channel on YouTube and at the Warrior Magic Community page on Facebook. You can find links to all these places on my website, jeanniecoomber.com, and most importantly, be sure to tell friends about us, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Spotify. It helps others find the show and puts more warrior magic out into the world.